Get off me. Elora Quinn hit the penthouse door with both palms. The rain had followed her into the elevator, cold on her lashes, and now Manhattan glittered behind a wall of glass like it was watching. Killian Vale waited in the center of the room. Charcoal suit. Empty hands. Eyes that looked like they had never asked for permission. He slid a folder across the marble. Open it. Elora forced her fingers to move. A contract. Her name. His name. 1 year. Marriage. She shoved it back. No. Killian did not blink. A second folder landed beside it. Photos, reports, a corner page with red stamps. Her parents smiling. Her parents under a sheet by the highway. Her throat closed. Stop. They did not die in an accident. Killian said. They were erased. You do not get to say that. I do. He replied, calm as a blade. Because I have the proof. The Walker family ordered it. The Walkers. Donors. Legacy. The people who hugged her at the funeral and told her to be strong. Elora's voice cracked. Why are you telling me? Killian stepped close enough to steal her air. Because you will marry me. She laughed, broken. Never. His gaze slid to the black bags by the hall, the last of her parents' things she had rescued. Then I destroy everything you have left. In an hour. Rage snapped through grief. Elora slapped him. The sound echoed. Killian only turned his head slightly, like pain was beneath him. Then he caught her wrist and pushed her back against the glass. New York spread behind her, bright and ruthless. Sign. He said. 1 year. I hand you their crimes. I bury them. You get revenge. And if I refuse? His thumb pressed into her pulse. You lose your memories. Every letter. Every heirloom. Every trace of them. Elora shook, breathing hard. She hated him. She wanted to rip his throat out. Then she saw her mother in her mind, smiling in the kitchen. Her father teaching her to argue with facts instead of tears. Elora picked up the pen. She signed. The instant the ink dried, Killian released her. For one heartbeat his hand hovered near her cheek, almost gentle, then vanished. Elora's knees buckled. Darkness rose. She fell and he caught her before she hit the floor. When she woke, she lay on a couch under a blanket that smelled like cedar and smoke. Killian sat at the edge, wiping a tear from her cheek like he could not stand to see it. You will hate me. He said quietly. Elora swallowed. Why do you have my parents' files? He stood without answering and walked to his study. The door opened as if it had never been locked. Elora followed, dizzy, and stopped dead. A wall of photographs. Her at 8 with ice cream. Her at 13 at a school dance. Her at 19 leaving the library late. Her yesterday, walking into the courthouse with rain on her hair. Hundreds of images. Labeled. Dated. You watched me. She whispered. For years. Killian said behind her. Why? Because you were never safe. Elora spun, fury and fear tangling. You do not get to decide that. The Walkers took your parents. He said. They would have taken you next. I did not let them. She backed away. So you saved me by trapping me. Killian's gaze held hers like a lock. I saved you by keeping you alive. His phone buzzed. He answered without looking away. Freeze every Walker account tied to foreign cash. He said. 300 million, tonight. He ended the call. Elora's breath hitched. You can do that. Killian's voice dropped. I already did. A shameful satisfaction slid through her, sweet and dark. Someone was finally hurting because of what they did. Killian watched her face change, and something in his eyes softened into devotion that terrified her more than threats. That is only the beginning. He said. Elora stared at the wall of her own life. She understood it then, with sick clarity. This was not a random cruelty. It was a trap built over years. And she had just stepped into the center of it. Killian led her back to the living room. A screen on the wall glowed with market tickers and banking alerts. Names Elora recognized from charity plagues and scholarship brochures flashed in red. Walker Holdings. Killian said. Walker Charitable Trust. Walker Development Partners. Lines froze, numbers locked, notifications stacking like falling dominoes. Illyra stared. You are crushing them. I am turning off their lights. He replied. Then, softer. They should have never touched your family. Illyra hated the tremor that ran through her at the words. And after 1 year. Killian's gaze held hers. After 1 year, you will be strong enough that no one can corner you again. She should have felt relief. Instead, the promise sounded like he was planning for her to leave. The ring on Illyra's finger was cold, perfect, and heavy as a chain. Killian placed it there with no ceremony, only a steady look that dared her to fight. That night, they entered a ballroom above Fifth Avenue. Chandeliers. Champagne. Predators and silk smiles. The Walker name floated through every conversation like perfume. Smile. Killian murmured as cameras flashed. Illyra kept her lips curved. This is your stage. It is their cage. He replied. Vanessa Walker approached in emerald satin, eyes sharp. Mrs. Vale, how unexpected. Her gaze slid over Illyra's dress. I thought you would marry a professor, not a man with such a reputation. Killian tilted his head. Reputation is fear with better lighting. Vanessa's smile thinned. We should talk privately. No. Killian said. A tall blonde man pushed in with a grin like a blade. Graham Walker. Illyra remembered him from a scholarship banquet, warm handshake, polite laughter. Now his eyes were cold. So it is true. He said. You married the devil. Why pick the broke law student with dead parents? Illyra went rigid. Killian's voice was calm. Say their names again. Graham smirked. Tragic accident. Life is fragile. Illyra stepped forward, rage igniting, but Killian moved first. He caught Graham's wrist, twisted, and bone cracked. Graham screamed. The room froze. Killian did not raise his voice. Do not speak of her family. Vanessa gasped. You cannot do this here. I can do anything. Killian said softly. And I will do worse if you touch her. Security lifted Graham like trash and dragged him out. The crowd parted, terrified. Illyra stared at Killian in the car afterward, heart still racing. You broke his hand. He broke the rules. You made a scene. I made a statement. He said. You needed to see it. Back at the penthouse, Killian went to the kitchen. Illyra followed, wary, and found him mixing batter with grim focus. You have staff. She said. Not tonight. You cook. I can learn. He slid a plate toward her. Blueberry pancakes. Illyra blinked. Why? Killian looked tired in the harsh light, older than the headlines. Because you eat when you are anxious. He said. And you are always anxious. She hated that he noticed. She hated that she wanted to accept the comfort. That night, Illyra lay rigid on the far side of the bed. Killian stood by the window, phone in hand, voice low. Cut the Walkers off. He ordered. No loans, no favors, no oxygen. He ended the call and turned. Sleep. Illyra let out a bitter laugh. How? Killian crossed the room, sat, and held out his hand. What is this? She demanded. His voice roughened. I do not sleep. When I do, it is because you are near. Illyra stared. That is not normal. Neither am I. Against every instinct, she slid closer. Killian wrapped one arm around her waist and pressed his face into her hair like it was the only safe place left in the world. Illyra lay still, trapped in his hold, listening to his breathing slow. In the morning, she walked into her law school debate and felt the whispers chase her down the aisle. Professor Harlan stared at her ring like it was dirt. We do not need distractions. He said. Do not pretend you earned your way here. Illyra lifted her chin and argued with precision, dismantling every point, leaving the room silent when she finished. Harlan's phone buzzed. He glanced down, then went pale. After class he cornered her, voice tight. Miss Quinn, I may have been harsh. Illyra stared. Who called you? Harlan swallowed. Your husband. Illyra walked outside into winter air and called Killian. He answered immediately. Are you safe? Did you threaten my professor? A pause. I corrected him. I do not need you to fight my battles. I know. Killian said. I want to anyway. The words hit her harder than any threat. That night, Illyra searched his files again and found a name buried in old transfers. Vale. Her stomach dropped. Killian might not just be her weapon. He might be part of the blade that cut her family apart. At dawn, Illyra woke to the sound of a glass breaking. She found Killian in the kitchen, barehanded, staring at a shattered tumbler as if he could not understand why it slipped. His eyes were bloodshot. "I told you I do not sleep." Illyra hesitated, then poured water for him with careful hands. "Nightmares." Killian's jaw tightened. "Memories." Illyra almost asked about the fire, about the way his fingers had trembled in her hair, about the ache in her chest that did not match hatred. Instead she said, "You could have let Graham talk. You chose violence." Killian took a sip, gaze hard. "Violence is the only language the walkers respect." Illyra stared at him. "And what language do you respect?" Killian's voice dropped. "The truth. When I finally give it to you, do not flinch." The old lawyer met Illyra in a diner near the courthouse, hands shaking as he slid an envelope across the table. "Your parents came to me scared," he whispered. "They thought someone would silence them." "Who?" Illyra demanded. He hesitated. "The Walkers. And the Vale family." Illyra opened the envelope with numb fingers. Signatures. Dates. Company shells. Her father's frantic notes in the margins. "They are working together. If anything happens, protect Illyra." Illyra left the diner feeling hollow. By midnight she stood in Killian's living room, the marriage contract on the table. Killian arrived, rain on his coat, eyes shadowed. "Where did you get that?" "Answer me." Illyra snapped. "Did your father help the Walkers kill mine?" "My father is dead," Killian said. "So is mine." Illyra shot back. "Tell me the truth." Killian's voice went low. "The truth would destroy what little peace you have." Illyra laughed, sharp and ugly. "Peace. You dragged me into this." She ripped the contract in half and let it fall. "I will not be your wife. I will burn you down." Killian stepped in front of the door. "Do not leave." Illyra shoved him. "Move. You will get yourself killed," he warned. "At least I will die free." She spat and ran. On the sidewalk, a hand clamped over her mouth. A van door opened. Sweet chemical smell. Darkness. She woke on concrete, wrists bound, a single bulb swinging. Graham Walker stepped into the light, his splinted hand raised like a trophy. "You made me look weak," he said. "Now I break you. You killed my parents." Illyra rasped. Graham smiled. "They were inconvenient. Truth is expensive." Illyra's blood went cold. "Killian will come. He always does," Graham said. "That is what makes him predictable." The warehouse door slammed open. Killian Vale walked in alone, shirt dark with rain, eyes lethal. Guns aimed at him. He ignored them. He looked at Illyra. "Are you hurt?" Illyra swallowed. "Yes." Killian nodded once. Then he faced the room. "There are 10 of you," he said calmly. "That is unfortunate for you." The first shot rang out. Killian moved like a storm. He disarmed, fired, shattered threats with ruthless precision. Bodies dropped. Men screamed. Illyra watched in horror and awe as he closed the distance to her. Graham backed away. "Stop, we can talk." Killian grabbed him by the throat and slammed him into the wall. "You touched her." A gun cracked from the side. Illyra screamed as the bullet hit Killian's chest. He staggered, then turned and dropped the shooter with a single shot. Still bleeding, he tore Illyra's ropes apart with shaking hands. "Why?" Illyra choked, catching him as he swayed. "Why do this for me?" Killian's breath came shallow. "Because you do not understand what you are to me." Sirens wailed in the distance. Killian's eyes burned fierce even as his knees buckled. "My father did business with the Walkers," he rasped. "He tried to leave. They framed him. They burned him for it. I have been cleaning that mess ever since. I did not kill your parents." Illyra's throat tightened. "Then why not tell me?" "I would rather you hate me than die," Killian whispered. Hours later, in a private hospital room, Illyra sat beside him, staring at the bandage on his chest. Beneath it, she saw an old jagged scar. The same place as hers. Memory snapped. Smoke. Heat. A child hand pushing her toward a window. A fire. Elora whispered. You were there. Killian opened his eyes, pain etched deep. You remember. You saved me. Elora breathed. I tried. He said, voice rough. I watched you grow up. I kept you alive. A man in a suit entered, grim. Sir, the walkers leaked a story. They are trying to destroy Elora's name. Killian's gaze sharpened. Collapse them. He ordered from the bed. The man nodded and left. Elora stared. From here. Killian turned his head toward her. I never stop. He said. Elora took his hand, feeling his fingers tighten around hers like a vow that had never needed ink. Trust had shattered. But in the broken edges, something new began to form. By morning, the Walker Empire was hemorrhaging. Alerts lit up Elora's phone like a storm. Trading halts. Executive resignations. Law enforcement statements. People who once smiled at cameras now hid behind lawyers and locked doors. Elora stood at the hospital window, watching the city wake up and crumble at the same time. This is revenge. She whispered. Killian's voice was rough. This is consequences. Elora turned back to him. When you heal, you will tell me everything. No more cages made of secrets. Killian held her gaze, and for once he did not dodge. Yes. He said. But you will not like the part about your uncle. Elora went still. My uncle. Killian's eyes sharpened. He has been closer to the walkers than you know. Killian left the hospital early, ignored every warning, and drove Elora out of the city without explanation. Where are we going? Elora demanded as skyscrapers faded into winter trees. Killian kept his eyes on the road. Home. Hours later, a sign made Elora's chest ache. Pine Ridge. They parked near a hill where frost clung to charred earth. A blackened foundation lay half buried in snow, the remains of a house Elora had tried to forget. This is where it happened. She whispered. Killian stepped into the clearing like he was stepping into a grave. 15 years ago, the walkers wanted my father gone. He had proof. They set the fire while he was inside. Elora swallowed. My parents stopped. Killian nodded once. They ran in. Your mother told me to call for help. Then I heard you screaming. You were trapped downstairs. Elora's vision blurred. Smoke, heat, panic. I went back. Killian said, voice low. I found you. I pushed you out a window. A beam fell. That is why we share the scar. Elora stared at him, shaking. I forgot. I did not. He said. I watched you grow up. I made sure the walkers could not finish what they started. Her throat tightened. So you built your life around this. Killian's gaze held hers, raw now. I built my life around you. Elora's heart clenched. You forced me. Yes. He said, not excusing it. Because I was scared. Because everyone around you was smiling while they sharpened knives. Elora shook her head. Who? Killian reached into his coat and handed her a photo. Dominic Quinn, her uncle, clasping hands with Vanessa Walker. Smiling like conspirators. Dated 3 months after the funeral. Elora's hands went numb. No. Killian's voice was a knife. Yes. He raised me. Elora whispered. He paid my tuition. He bought your silence. Killian said. He kept you close as leverage. Elora backed away, nausea rising. You are trying to turn me against my only family. I am trying to keep you alive. Killian replied. For a long moment, snow fell between them like ash. Then Elora did the one thing she had not done since her parents died. She reached for him. Killian took her hand like he had been starving for it. Back in Manhattan, the tension between them shifted. Killian stopped threatening. Elora stopped running. Their arguments turned into sharp confessions. Their silences turned into heat. One night, Killian handed her a set of keys. A new office. A law firm, your name on the door. Elora stared. You cannot buy my forgiveness. I am not buying it. Killian said. I am building your future. She swallowed, eyes burning. Why? Killian stepped close. Because I want to watch you win. They kissed, fierce and honest, like two storms colliding. 2 days later, Elora stood in Dominic's townhouse, forcing her face calm as he poured wine. You look tired, he said, eyes too gentle. Married life stressful. Illyra smiled, brittle. Different. Dominic leaned closer. Killian Vale is dangerous. If you ever want out, I can make it happen. Illyra held his gaze, remembering the photo, the date, the lie. Her pulse pounded. Why would you offer that? She asked softly. Dominic's smile widened. Because I love you, you are all I have left. Illyra nodded. I will think about it. Outside, cold air hit her face like a slap. Her phone buzzed with a message from Killian. Do not go anywhere alone tonight. Illyra stared at the screen, heart racing. She had not told him she visited her uncle. So how did he know? And why did the warning feel less like control now, and more like a plea? That night, Illyra returned to the penthouse and found Killian in his study, staring at the photo wall like it could confess something new. He turned when she entered, cautious, as if he had learned to fear her silence. You went to Dominic, Killian said. Illyra kept her voice steady. He offered to help me leave you. Killian's jaw tightened. And? Illyra stepped closer, watching his hands empty, restrained. And I said I would think about it, so he would keep talking. Killian exhaled, slow, like relief hurt. Be careful. I am being careful, Illyra said. Then, quieter. You were right, that scares me. Killian's gaze softened. I do not want to be right. I want you alive. Illyra reached up and touched the scar at his collarbone, gentle. Then stop pretending you can do this alone. Killian's voice went hoarse. I do not know how. Illyra kissed him again, slower this time, like a promise instead of a collision. Learn. She whispered. The kidnapping came on a Tuesday, because evil did not need drama to be efficient. Illyra left her office late, files under her arm, breath white in the cold. The street was busy, normal. A man bumped her shoulder. Sorry. Another brushed past. A third hand clamped over her mouth. Sweet chemical smell. Darkness. She woke with her wrists zip-tied, head pounding, in a room that smelled like bleach. Across from her, Dominic Quinn sat calmly, legs crossed. Uncle. Illyra whispered. Dominic sighed. I told you not to marry him. You did this, she said, voice rough. Dominic leaned forward, eyes cold now. Your parents wanted to expose a pipeline. Dirty money through charities and construction. They thought truth mattered. They were wrong. Illyra's stomach dropped. You helped kill them. I helped protect this family, Dominic said. And I protected you. If you stayed quiet, you could have lived comfortably. But you had to dig. And Killian had to interfere. Why bring me here? Dominic gestured to a phone on the table. Because Killian will trade everything for you. I want his empire. Then I want him gone. Illyra forced herself to breathe. She scanned the room. A vent. A loose board. A camera angled wrong. Details Dominic ignored because he thought she was beaten. Hours passed. Illyra listened, mapped footsteps, waited for a mistake. When a guard came in, she stumbled on purpose, spilled water near the loose board, wetting the wood. Later, alone, she worked a zip tie against the sharp edge, sawing slowly, ignoring the pain. Dominic's phone rang. He answered, smiling. Bring him in. The door opened. Killian Vale stepped inside. Empty hands. Storm eyes. His gaze flicked to Illyra. Are you hurt? Illyra gave a tiny shake of her head. Not yet. Wait. Dominic laughed. Such devotion. Killian, sign over your assets. Disappear. Then she walks out. Killian did not hesitate. Done. Illyra choked. Killian, no. Dominic snatched the signed page, delighted. Predictable. Armed men stepped from the shadows, surrounding Killian. Dominic's smile sharpened. I cannot let you live. You know too much. Then shoot me. Killian said, calm. Dominic nodded. Do it. Illyra moved. She slipped her hand free, threw a shard of plastic into a guard's face, grabbed his dropped gun, and swung it up with shaking hands. Stop. She screamed. The room froze. Dominic stared. Illyra, you will not shoot. Illyra's voice went steady. You taught me to be smart. You forgot to teach me to be obedient. A slow clap echoed. A hidden door opened. Men in dark suits flooded in, then police uniforms, badges flashing, guns aimed. Dominic spun, face draining. What is this? Killian's voice cut through the chaos. It is the end. You planned this. Dominic snarled. I have known you were rotten for months. Killian said. I wanted proof. I wanted witnesses. I wanted the law to bury you. Police grabbed Dominic. He struggled, screaming, but his voice was swallowed by handcuffs and orders. Illyra stepped forward, heart hammering. Look at me, she said to Dominic. Dominic glared. You owe me. Illyra's voice did not shake. I owe you nothing. When Dominic was dragged away, the room emptied until only Illyra and Killian remained, the air thick with adrenaline. Illyra stared at the paper that showed Killian signing away his empire. You really would have given up everything. Killian met her eyes. Yes. Even if it killed you. Yes. Illyra's throat tightened. Why? Killian's hand hovered near her cheek, careful, as if he feared touching without permission. Because I have been bound to you since the fire. He said. Revenge was never the point. You were. Illyra swallowed hard. Is the contract still real? Killian's gaze softened. No, I destroyed it before you signed. I needed you close enough to protect you until you could stand. Illyra blinked, stunned. Then why threaten me? Killian's jaw clenched. Because you would have run, and they would have found you. I could not risk losing you again. Illyra stepped into him, forward to his. This is not a contract. Killian's breath shook. No. It is a choice. Illyra whispered. Killian closed his eyes. Always. Outside, sirens faded into the city. Inside, the last trap snapped shut, not on her, but on the people who tried to own her life. For the first time since her parents died, Illyra felt something like freedom. Killian guided Illyra outside into cold night air. Police lights painted the street in blue and red. Illyra breathed like she had been underwater for years. She looked at Killian. You knew Dominic would take me. Killian's face tightened. I knew he would try. And you still let it happen. Her voice cracked, anger and fear mixing. You used me. Killian did not argue. Yes. And I hated myself for it. Illyra swallowed hard. Then why? Killian's eyes burned. Because if I moved too early, he would run. He would disappear with Walker money and come back when you least expected it. I needed him in a room where the law could close around him like iron. Illyra stared at him, chest aching. Next time you trust me with the plan. Killian stepped closer, careful. There will be no next time. Illyra almost laughed. Do not promise what you cannot control. Killian's mouth twitched. Fine. Then I promise this. You will never be alone again unless you ask for it. Spring softened New York. Illyra stood in her new office, sunlight climbing the skyline, her name on the door like a promise. Illyra Quinvale, attorney at law. Killian kept his word. He cut old ties, turned violence into leverage, pulled his empire into the light. He did not become gentle. He became clean. In court, Illyra faced Dominic and the last of the Walker allies. Cameras followed. Reporters shouted. The room smelled like polish and judgment. My parents died because they refused to be bought. Illyra said, voice steady. They believed the law mattered. I am here because I believe it too. Dominic glared like he could still own her. Illyra met his eyes without flinching. You used my grief. You lied to my face. Today, you face consequences. When she finished, the courtroom went quiet. Then the judge spoke, and the verdict fell like stone. The Walkers were dismantled. Dominic was sent to maximum security, alive, not free, forced to live inside the ruin he built. Justice was colder than revenge, cleaner than blood. On a bright Saturday in May, Killian drove Illyra back to Pine Ridge. Workers moved through the burned clearing, laying stone, planting young trees. A garden. Killian said when Illyra stared. Her throat tightened. Why? Because the place that tried to take you from me should become a place that gives you peace. He said. Illyra swallowed. You cannot rewrite the past. Killian's gaze held hers. No, but we can decide what grows from it. That night, on the penthouse balcony, Illyra rested a hand on her stomach, distracted by a strange ache she had ignored for days. Killian noticed. "What is wrong?" Illyra hesitated, then let out a disbelieving laugh. "I took a test." Killian went still. "And?" "It was positive," Illyra whispered. For the first time, Killian looked stunned. His hand trembled as he touched her stomach, careful, reverent. "A child," he said, voice rough. Illyra nodded, tears spilling. "A child. Are you happy?" Killian asked, and the question sounded like fear. Illyra laughed through tears. "I am terrified." Killian's gaze softened. "Then we are the same." A month later, they stood in a church overlooking the city, sunlight through stained glass, because Illyra wanted beauty that did not demand blood. There was no contract. No threats. Only the vow she chose. When the officiant asked if she would take him, Illyra met Killian's eyes and saw the monster the world feared, and the man who wiped her tears when he thought she could not see. "I will," she said. Killian's voice shook once. "I will," he said. "For every day you let me." After the ceremony, they returned to Pine Ridge. The garden was half finished, young trees standing in neat lines. A stone path formed a circle at the center. Killian stopped there, turned, and dropped to one knee. Illyra gasped. "We just got married." Killian's mouth twitched. "That was for the world. This is for you." He held up a simple band etched with a single line. "No contracts. Only us." Illyra covered her mouth, crying. Killian's gaze was fierce and vulnerable at once. 15 years ago, I pulled you out of fire," he said. "I have been trying to earn the right to stand beside you ever since. I will spend my life proving it if you let me." Illyra cupped his face. "You do not have to prove anything." "I want to," Killian whispered. Illyra kissed him. "Then get up," she said, voice shaking. "Because I am not leaving you on your knees." Killian rose, arms around her, and Illyra felt the future settle around them, heavy and bright. Revenge had bound them together. Love made the binding permanent. And this time, it was not a trap. It was home. Later, in their apartment above the city, Illyra found Killian in the nursery he insisted on building before the first ultrasound. He stood in the doorway, staring at an empty crib like it was the only thing that could terrify him. Illyra leaned into him. "You look like you are about to start a war." Killian's voice was low. "I already fought one. I do not want this child to inherit my darkness." Illyra cupped his face. "Our child will inherit our choices, not our past." Killian swallowed, eyes glassy for a heartbeat. "Then we choose better." Illyra nodded. "We do." On the first warm day of summer, they returned to Pine Ridge again. The garden was finished now. Flowers bloomed where ash had been. A small plaque set near the path, simple and plain, with 2 names engraved. Marion Quinn. James Quinn. Illyra touched the plaque and closed her eyes. Killian wrapped an arm around her. "They would be proud." Illyra whispered. "I hope so." Killian kissed her temple. "They saved me. I will spend my life honoring that." Illyra looked at him, the man who had once threatened her with ruin and then rebuilt her future with ruthless devotion. "Then stay," she said. Killian's gaze warmed. "Always."
Thanks for watching. Follow for more romance stories.